Good evening, everyone. This is Dave Cubby again. If you've been paying attention to my social media pages, you are aware that a bench warrant has been issued against me by Judge Mayola out of North Haledon, New Jersey. It's been my direct allegation that Judge Mayola has shown nothing but bias in this matter, along with the previous judges that handled the case, including John Segreto and John Abdelhadi from Haledon and Paterson, respectively. I was deprived of a probable cause hearing. I was deprived of initial appearance in this matter for more than almost 6 months, I would say, where I wrote the court repeatedly and the prosecutor's office repeatedly, demanding a probable cause hearing and an initial appearance. They refused to give me one. By court rule, they were required to do this within 60 days. Just a few months ago, Judge Mayola transferred this matter to his court without an order after I had accused Judge Segreto of creating a conflict of interest by filing litigation that involves me without naming me as a party. This is a gross violation of conflict of interest rules, and Mayola has completely suppressed the fact that Segreto is engaged in this conduct. At this stage, I was basically forced to refuse to participate any further in this illegal process. Mayola, as with Segreto, immediately attempted to force this into a trial as soon as it came before him. At this stage, there is no probable cause hearing that could even be held. It's more than a year and a half after the incident. The reason why this is supposed to be held shortly after the incident is to prevent falsification of evidence, and tampering with witnesses. And the state has had a year and a half with which to do that. So at this point, basically, they were trying to force me into a trial without having determined these issues. And the important thing is, if I did not contest them, if I did not insist on a probable cause hearing, I would not be able to pursue complaints against these officers later. I would be helpless in terms of going into a court with a lawsuit alleging brutality against these officers, because there would already be a decision on the record saying probable cause was found or that I waived my right to a hearing. This has to be done before. It has to be done before a trial. You can't really request one afterwards. And now at this stage, in addition to this lack of probable cause and a lack of a probable cause hearing, Mayola has refused to deal with clear and convincing evidence that the Paterson Police Department and the prosecutors that handled this matter before it came to his court deliberately deleted evidence. And the evidence is in the video that you see off to the side here, and which we'll get into shortly. I'm going to try to do a little bit of a breakdown here of what happened. And, first of all, let me note that I could do a 3-part series here, and I probably will. This first video, I'm just going to try to explain why the prosecutor is out of line in trying to pursue this case. I directly categorize it as malicious prosecution and political retaliation. But I'm just going to go into this video. I'm going to go to the video, the reports, the complaint I filed with the Paterson Police Department Internal Affairs Department, who didn't handle it. They issued a cursory letter that basically just said, we find no wrongdoing, with no investigation, no interviews, no file for the investigation, just one letter. They even sent it to me. They claimed that it was sent out in September of 2020. I never received anything. But the fact of the matter is, without trying to give me a probable cause hearing, without discussing spoliation of evidence and destruction of evidence, John Mayola is trying to force me into a trial. And the express purpose for that would be to try to force me to waive my right to challenge probable cause. So what exactly is probable cause? A lot of people see probable cause, or only know probable cause, in terms of when a cop stops you and attempts to search you or your belongings. There's also probable cause to arrest, and they're basically the same exact standard. They follow the same exact rule. In New Jersey, the courts have held that probable cause exists if at the time of the police action there is a well-grounded suspicion that a crime has been or is being committed. That's from State v. Waltz. That's a New Jersey Supreme Court case. Further on, and this is all from the holding in State v. Sullivan, which is another New Jersey Supreme Court case. They're basically describing probable cause here. But to continue, there is little or no difference in determining probable cause within the context of an arrest as compared to that of a search. And that's from State v. Smith. In dealing with probable cause, as the very name implies, we deal with probabilities. These are not technical. They are the factual and practical considerations of everyday life on which reasonable and prudent men, not legal technicians, act. And that is also from State v. Smith. So what is the court saying there, particularly in that last sentence? Well, what they're saying is that there has to be a probable cause hearing. There is no formula for determining probable cause. It is fact-intensive. It is decided on a case-by-case basis. So, in short, what I'm trying to say is in denying me this right to this hearing, Mayola and Segredo and John Abdelhadi have basically deprived me of any opportunity to actually meaningfully contest it. They are trying to say that just based on the summons and the fact that a judicial officer who isn't a judge happened to permit the summons to be filed, that constitutes probable cause. It's fairly obvious to anyone that it doesn't. Any attorney or judge that would claim such should be disbarred for being incompetent. There's no way they actually believe that that's true. If they do, as I said, they're incompetent. They need to be removed from their positions. But once again, I don't think that this is the case. But I don't mean to get into the retaliation angle here. I want to just have us look at this video here, and I will discuss specifically why the prosecutor, who is at least charged with knowing what's in the contents of this video and the contents of the report, should know beyond any doubt that there is no probable cause here. So, anyway, well, I guess we should get into a bit of a discussion of what I was charged with and why I was there in the first place. I was at this store to attempt to recover property at the invitation of the Paterson Police Department. I was wrongfully evicted from my apartment. Again, that's another issue, another set of facts. They are relevant, but they're not relevant necessarily to deciding my criminal charges. And I'll likely get into those at a different time, likely in that third video I discussed. But anyway, when I was wrongfully evicted, the Paterson Police Department, I informed them that there were 2 antique rifles in my apartment because they came up on me suddenly. I told them that I didn't have my firearms ID card with me, but this doesn't matter. It had nothing to do with anything. The only thing I needed to do was be able to prove that I owned them, and they themselves looked into their own databases and confirmed that they were mine and that I had a valid firearms ID card. They had no purpose in doubting it. They had no reason to seize the weapons, but they refused to let me take them out of my own apartment and put them in my car and bring them home with me. They would not allow me to do it. At the time, I was confused about whether I needed a firearms ID card to transport the weapons, but the state police has confirmed since that there's no requirement that I have the physical card on me in order to transport them. So there's a police report of this incident. The police report clearly states that if I came to the police station and produced my firearms ID card, that they would return the weapons to me. But when I did this, the police refused to return them. So this basically got kicked around for 6 months. They wouldn't return them. I was lied to on several occasions by high-ranking police officials. Finally, after I sent a letter in late October of 2019, the police invited me to go to G&S Hunters on Main Street in Paterson to pick up my property. When I got there, I was told that I would have to pay a firearms transfer fee to have my own property returned to me. Not only that, but the store owner told me that I would have to sign off on a false statement from the Paterson Police Department that I had abandoned the weapons in the apartment, that I had left firearms unattended in an apartment in Paterson. Now, of course, this would be a fraudulent statement on a federal form. I would never sign off on such a thing. And besides the fact, that could then be used to come back and say that I was reckless and cannot be trusted with firearms. And as a matter of fact, the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office almost immediately requested that the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office file a petition to revoke my firearms ID card without having reviewed the evidence. Pretty ridiculous stuff. So the main offense that I was charged with was defiant trespass. Now, it doesn't actually apply here. Now, I'm pulling up the statute from a site that's known as Justia. This isn't always 100% accurate in terms of statutes or case law, but it's pretty good. It's the internet. It's kind of like a Wikipedia of laws. But defiant trespass is codified under Section 2C 18.3b, which is right here. You can see it, defiant trespasser. Now, a person commits a petty disorderly person's offense if, knowing that he is not licensed or privileged to do so, he enters or remain in any place as to which notice against trespass is given by 1. Actual communication to the actor, or 2. posting in a manner prescribed by law or reasonably likely to come to the attention of intruders, or 3, fencing or other enclosure manifestly designed to exclude intruders. It is my position that I was never asked to leave the store by the store owner. I told the store owner that I was going to report the firearms as stolen to the state police. He told me that he was going to call the Paterson police, and then later added, "You better get out of here, the police are coming." But he never ordered me to leave the store. But anyway, further on in this same statute, you come down to this section D, which is clearly labeled as defenses. It is an affirmative defense to prosecution, meaning that even if I did it, I'm not guilty of an offense, if one of these things apply. It is an affirmative defense to prosecution under this section that, 1, a structure involved in an offense under a subsection was abandoned. The structure at the time was at the time open to members of the public, and the actor complied with all lawful conditions imposed on access to or remaining in the structure, or the actor reasonably believed that the owner of the structure or other person empowered to license access thereto would have licensed him to enter or remain, or, in the case of subsection C of this section, to peer, meaning to look through windows and stuff like that. Part of the Peeping Tom statute of Defiant trespass. So basically what I would like you to focus in on is, well, it's my representation that I was never told to leave the store. Others may differ. I claim they're lying. That's the only thing I can do. But still, under this section D2, the structure was, at the time, open to members of the public. It was a public business. It is a store. It is open to the public. And I complied with all lawful conditions imposed on access or remaining in the structure. Now, even if he had told me to leave the store, he did not have a valid reason for telling me to leave the store. And further, he told me that he had called the police, and at that point, I am unable to leave the store. I'm not gonna be accused of fleeing the scene, which is basically what might happen in light of the fact that they had already falsified the report, the form for transferring the weapons to the firearms dealer. So that's that. So basically, in order to establish probable cause, the police officers would have to have been able to swear that they witnessed me violating this section. Now, that is a fact-intensive investigation. They would have to find out who I was, first of all. They would have had to identify me as the trespasser. And then from there, they would have had to have determined whether or not I had previous notice that I wasn't supposed to be there, which never happened. I had never been to this store before. I had never been thrown out of it. I had never had a conversation with the store owner. And then they would also have to show that the structure was not open to the public and that I did not comply with lawful conditions for being there. So that would be what the determination these officers would have had to have made to arrest me. Now, I would not be taking this to the level of claiming corruption if they had simply issued a summons. I would have called that retaliation. I would have said that there was no merit to it, but things unrolled differently, and we'll go into the breakdown of the video, and I'll try to explain why I think that was. I'll just make this a little bit bigger for you here. So if you notice here, this video is starting at 9:15 of the playtime. The total playtime is 24 minutes. The video is broken into 3 sections. The first section shows the interior of the store and my conversation with the store owner. The second, then it cuts to this outside view of when the officers attack me. Then for a while it goes back to an inside view of just before they attacked me, before going back again to an outside view of the attack, which I don't think there's any difference between the 2 sections showing the attack. But this particular spot, I'm just bringing this up because this shows the entire interaction with the officer who initiated contact. Now, I didn't know any of these officers. I had never had much interaction with the Paterson police previously. I had known a number of their members to be highly professional. I had witnessed on a number of occasions them properly handle emotionally disturbed persons, including people high on intoxicants and drugs, ranting and raving in parking lots, and things like that. And they did not behave like this. So we'll get into the video here, and this is the beginning of it. This is as a little bit of pretext. When I exited the store here, and I'll be seen at the bottom left corner here. You'll see my hand in my cell phone. I initially observed the 2 officers that were standing behind my car, which is, you can see the bumper of it right in front of this red Jeep here. And those were the officers I addressed when I came out. I didn't even see Nybanks until he walked up to me, which is basically where this video starts. The officers I addressed them when I exited the door didn't respond, and they didn't even acknowledge the fact that I addressed them in their reports. If they filed one, I'm not sure if they're the officers that filed reports even. But here we go. We'll count the seconds between when Banks walks up to me, and you know, we'll get it going from there. Now that's 10 seconds before he starts walking towards me, and this escalates from here. Now, also note at this point that I mean you can't tell what he's saying, and unfortunately there's no audio in the video. I can't expect there to be audio in an external surveillance camera, but you can see that he speaks to me in short sentences here, short phrases. There are no long commands. There's no conversation. Going back, if you go back again, you can see me gesturing with my hands towards the officer. My hands are up here. I'm not resisting, nothing like that. We'll go back again. We'll show you one more time. Oop, too far. So here's coming up to me again. You can see that I'm not using my cell phone. I have it in one hand. I'm waving it. I'm gesturing. I have my hands up. You can see this officer off to the left here was diving at my feet, attempting to pick me up for I don't know what reason. Probably to slam me into the concrete. And I believe that these officers were aware of where this camera was located and were trying to drag me off further to the right of this frame so that the camera wouldn't have picked up what was going on. You can kind of verify this by other officers that come into the left over here off of the peripheral, and they kind of stop and don't approach the pile, which, you know, doesn't seem to have any kind of real good reason for doing that. They're trying to, I submit they're trying to stay out of view. And finally, you know, the officers go in to check on the store owner. There's no attempt to check on the store owner. No attempt to identify me. Nothing. Just an attack. That's it. So, I suppose this isn't the only evidence. I mean, in that 10-second period, there'd be absolutely no way to determine whether I was the person accused of trespassing, whether I had a license to be there or not, whether I was asked to leave or not, whether I'd done anything wrong. And at this stage, well, we'll see from other angles, but the claim is I tried to block the doorway, which is absolute nonsense. That's not at all depicted in the inside video, and they cut out 6 seconds of video, which would have clearly shown that my back was to him at this point, because I was trying to open my phone to record the conversation. That's basically why I feel I was attacked. These officers would not have been able to just issue a summons if I actually recorded the conversation and reported to them my feelings that the weapons had been stolen and unlawfully transferred to this firearms dealer, which is a fact. So what did the officers write in their report? I'm going to start with William Nybank as the ranking officer involved in initiating the attack. There was another lieutenant that was on the scene later on. Now, well, first it's important to note that there was no 911 call made of this incident. The store owner called a police lieutenant on his cell phone. So basically they did an end run around the 911 call recording system. So there's no record of what the store owner said. My statement is that the store owner directly told the police lieutenant that I was going to report the weapons as stolen. This made it into the police reports as me being reported as an emotionally disturbed person. And we'll go into the interior reviews and we'll show how that's nonsense as well. But let's first go into Officer Nybank's reports. I would have liked to have had these scanned in, but I mean, these are all from, you know, the official Paterson police records. There's really no way for them to say that they're not accurate at this point, so I can just read them on here. Yeah, so Officer Nybank describes the encounter this way. I observed the owner of the store, I'm omitting his name, it's in the report, standing behind the counter. When he noticed me, he began to flail his arms and point at the male in the doorway. Now this is important because, as I noted earlier, no attempt to try to talk to the shop owner before I was attacked. No attempt to try to get into the store before I was attacked. At this time, I asked the suspect to walk out of the doorway so I could speak with him. One command. He ignored me and continued to look at his phone. I'm clearly not ignoring him, and I'm clearly not looking at my phone. I don't know how I'd be looking at my phone, waving it around like this. Nonsense. Again, in a loud, clear voice, I asked him to come toward me so we could talk. 2 commands. The male again ignored me, saying twice that I ignored him. The third time, as I walked closer to the suspect, I I assume he means loudly, and clearly ordered the suspect out of the door and to the sidewalk, or he would be arrested. The suspect... Oh, that was it. That's what I'm going with there. I mean, it continues. It just basically describes the process afterwards. I mean, he goes on to say that he put me in a compliance hold because I refused to be taken into custody. I don't see any break between a decision where he says, "Oh, we're going to take you into custody," and any reason to escalate the thing with a damn compliance hold, particularly when there was 10 other officers there and I had my hands up. It's absolutely ridiculous that he would actually put that in a report. So the important thing to know too is only 2 days after this, and knowing full well, as everybody does, that I have a right to remain silent and anything I say can be used against me, I filed a written internal affairs complaint with the Paterson Police Department, stating my case. I took a risk doing this. I had no idea if there was video or anything, but I put this down on the record, knowing that it could be used against me. It's very detailed on why my firearms were at the store. I should probably post it. I'll probably post it online at some point. But what I said about the encounter is as follows. Upon opening the door, I observed as many as 12 to 15 Paterson police officers blocking the street, clearing it of pedestrians and otherwise surrounding the store. Now, I now argue that they did this to prevent witnesses. This is absolutely what was going on. There was no reason to clear the street, and I wasn't causing any kind of scene or disturbance. There was no reason to block the street. At that time, a white officer stepped forward and said, "Can you please come out of the shop? Please come out of the shop." That's a direct quote. That's exactly what my statement is, exactly what my testimony would be. That's exactly what he said. That's not a command. It's a request. And continuing on, I asked why, and the officer said, "Because I said so," which is he's not allowed to command people without any kind of justification, and he clearly wasn't attempting to investigate anything. I then asked if he could then hold on a moment so I could access my cell phone and videotape the conversation. At that moment, the officer grabbed me by the arm and dragged me out of the store. I would estimate the entire exchange lasted 15 seconds. I was never ordered out of the store, never refused an order to leave the store, and no investigation was conducted by the officers prior to grabbing my person and beating me. All of this is verified in the surveillance video. Yet, I'm still charged. So, I'm not the only one that contradicted Nybank's report. His own officers contradicted his report, it's also interesting to note that on every one of these reports, Sergeant Nybank is listed as the supervising officer supervising the preparation of the report. So whatever went into these reports was under his supervision. And as the person that grabbed me without any kind of justification, that is a massive conflict of interest. But anyway, as the other reports attempt to basically counter what I listed in the internal affairs complaint. It's my argument that they use my internal affairs complaint to draft these further narratives. I will be requesting digital confirmation of when these documents were created. These are all copies and scans. There has to be some kind of filing system down there. If it's not digital at this point, it's not reliable because obviously these officers are capable of lying. But anyway, an additional report, another officer stated, and this is directly from another one of these statements, at this time, Sergeant Nybanks advised Mr. Cubby to step out of the store, but refused to listen to his commands, stating that he's not leaving the store. Now, that's a direct contradiction of what Nybanks said, which is specifically that I ignored him. Now, this officer is claiming that I stated I would not leave the store, that I verbally denied his command and refused to do it. That's a conflicting statement. At which time Sergeant Nybanks advised him if you do not comply with the commands, he would be placed under arrest. Mr. Cubby became very irate towards Sergeant Nybank. When advised he was under arrest, he began to resist. Nowhere in that video was I advised that I was being arrested. I am clearly attacked while my back is turned and dragged from this doorway of the store. Well, continuing on, another officer stated that he found Mr. David R. Cubby standing in the doorway of the business, visibly agitated and using his phone. Again, saying I was using my phone. I wasn't using my phone. I was engaged in conversation with the officer, trying to engage in conversations with the officers who were refusing to have a conversation in return. They were clearly there for the purpose of jumping me. Sergeant Nybank repeatedly requested Mr. Cubby to exit the business and to show his hands after the business owner, Mr. I'm omitting his name, signaled that Mr. Cubby was the aggressive, disorderly customer. This is a statement saying that trying to say that they did undergo some kind of method of identifying who I was, which is completely false. And this will be confirmed when I show you the inside video in a few moments. So again, we have one officer saying that I ignored him. We have another officer saying I verbally refused to comply with commands. And two officers claiming that the store owner gave some kind of signal to the police officers indicating that I was the person in question. So we'll roll back. Oh, actually, we're going to roll forward here to the inside view. Well, let's point out a couple things here. First off, what you're seeing here is customers within the store. I'm clearly standing in the back. I make no effort to disturb these people. These people hardly acknowledge my presence. Certainly not signs of an emotionally disturbed person in their store. They don't even look at me. I mean, these videos are posted to YouTube on the Silk City Media Group site. I don't mean to, to out these guys, but I'm slowly scrolling through this and how long this goes on. I make no attempt to disturb any of the commerce. I'm not bothering anybody. Let's see if I can find it quick. But at one point, the store owner walks into the back room and leaves me alone with all the guns in his shop. Quite absurd, really. That might be in the earlier. Yeah, here it is. There's nobody in the... Well, there he is. He goes into the back room, and I am alone out there for a significant period of time. This is a guy that is claimed by the police to have been emotionally disturbed and reported as being emotionally disturbed to them. It is my assertion that Lieutenant Spagnola and any officer claiming to have heard the store owner claim I was an emotionally disturbed person is directly lying. So let's go back to that inside view from which, if you look at the timestamps here, they match up to the time where I was attacked by Nybanks. Now again, they don't show the outside footage, which would show the officers milling about and not coming into the store to check on the store owner. But what you'll see here in a little bit, as I get this going again, is you'll start to see. We're almost 2 minutes before the incident at this point. Those are the customers that just left. They're walking out. But you'll start to see other dark shapes moving past the window, and those are Paterson police officers. I observed them while I was trying to contact the state police, and then afterwards trying to contact the county sheriff when the state police refused to come down and take a report. I'm going to go forward about 45 seconds here on the timestamp. A little bit further. Too far. And you can see something's gotten my attention here as I'm walking towards the door. This figure is me, by the way. I hate to admit it, but I can get this for sure. I can go back to 19 on the playtime. So they walk out again. Oh. No issue, no raving, no emotional disturbance. Anyone can go look at this themselves. I'm not trying to skip over anything here. I'm just trying to get you to the pertinent points. So I'm still walking around. I'm still talking. We're about a minute before I go out. Well, at least about 40 seconds. That's a Paterson police officers walking past the screen there, and they clearly had my attention at this point. I was thinking that they were going to try to ticket my car or something. I clearly go out and I open the door. I don't try to brace myself against the door. I'm not bracing myself against the door jamb to try to prevent them from coming in. I mean, I'm looking up from my phone there. I'm clearly talking. I'm gesturing. And I'm not trying to skip over anything here. I'm just trying to get you to the pertinent points. So I'm looking up from my phone there. I'm clearly talking. I'm gesturing. I mean, I'm looking up from my phone there. I'm clearly talking. I'm gesturing. I'm I mean, at one point I was trying to open my phone to record the conversation. I indicated that. I put up my fingers at 1 second. I just want to open this up, and that's specifically what they're trying to prevent. Yeah, the gesturing again. I'm clearly having a conversation, not ignoring anybody. And you'll see at 2:26:10 at the timestamp up here that it jumps to 2:26:16 and basically doesn't show the moment when I was attacked. And finally, somebody walks into the store, gestures and says, "Is this the guy?" That's it. But going back, do you see at any point, I mean, and let me know through a private message if you find it, if you see the store owner gesturing to these police officers? Go back to the beginning of when I opened the door. Hands on the desk. Hands on the desk. No gesturing, no flailing of arms as claimed in the police reports. Not even an indication, not even a head nod if they could have seen such a thing from the street. Guy stands there like a statue. Nothing. Leaning on the desk. How's he going to flail his arms leaning on the desk? I don't see it. It's not there. I mean, this is a clear example of these officers lying in their reports. Clear as day. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't understand why they thought that would have been necessary unless they had read my internal affairs report complaint and then decided to try to counter it by lying in their own reports, and which is what I'm accusing them of doing. Now, the judge wouldn't necessarily have had access to this stuff yet, but the prosecutor certainly has, and there's no excuse for him trying to. His name's David Stanzial. There's no excuse for him trying to force this matter to trial, having reviewed it, claiming he's responsible for having reviewed this stuff. That's all there is to it. I mean, he's saying he's trying to push this thing towards a trial with this evidence in front of him. How is he going to explain that? I don't understand how he's going to attempt to explain that. And the only way I will explain it is political retaliation and judicial corruption. And that's the only terms that can be described in. So I thank you for sticking with me here. I hope it was informative. I hope this is something that might be able to help someone else that's caught in this situation. And it just, you don't have to put up with this. You don't have to put up with prosecutors lying to you. They're not as powerful as they pretend to be. And if you're getting, a line of garbage, you have a right to demand that probable cause hearing. You have a right to demand that they present all the evidence on the record and make a determination as whether or not there was a reason to arrest before they try to force you into a trial, before they set a trial date. This wasn't done in my case. They continued to resist by efforts to, now I'm trying to have the matter dismissed because it wasn't done, particularly after Judge Mayola tried to ambush me twice on the record with what appeared to be trials. The second one may have been he might try to represent as a probable cause hearing, but it's not a probable cause hearing. He was trying to take live testimony from this store owner before I had been put on full notice of the charges and before I had my discovery disputes resolved. I informed the prosecutor, the initial prosecutors, a year and a half before this that 6 seconds were missing from this video. I shouldn't say that. I didn't get this video until 6 months after the incident and after it had been leaked to local Paterson activists. I was informed by them that the video was available. I didn't even know it existed. Shortly afterwards, the video was just suspiciously dropped off by the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office without any kind of cover letter in a blatant attempt to prevent the prosecutors involved in this case from accepting responsibility for spoliation of evidence. So, there's attempts on all fronts to try to force this thing towards a trial, to try to just gloss over probable cause, and, we can't allow this. I won't allow this. I won't allow them to do this to other people. This is a tool for retaliating against people by proceeding this way. If you allow them to just say, well, I can just rubber stamp and say there was probable cause without actually going through the process, this is going to continue happening to people, and I will not allow it. I don't know. I'm not going to go into what I think these specific judges and prosecutors' motivations were. I don't know if they are part of the scheme or just merely listening to the commands of other corrupt people. But either way, they have refused to do their duty, and they now must be held accountable. But again, thank you for sitting with me here. Hopefully everyone will have a nice weekend. I will be living in fear of getting arrested and thrown into jail without cause, because that is the situation I'm in. Um, it's not necessarily comfortable. I am compelled to do this at this stage, if for no other reason that if I don't, I might not have an opportunity to put these statements on any kind of record, let alone an official one. So I ask you to share. I ask you to pass this around. I ask you to tell anyone you know about this. This official corruption is real. I have no doubt this is regularly employed against everyday Patersonians in bids to intimidate them, retaliate against them, and prevent them from pursuing their own rights and destinies. And I hope you'll help me in putting a stop to it. Thank you.